Hello, I'm Lola Stone and this is Handmade Originals. As promised in our last video, I'm now going to show you how to make these letters. Actually, that's not strictly true. This isn't so much a show and tell, this is more a tell because I've already made them. So bear with me. When I initially wanted to make these letters, I knew I wanted a background when I was going to make videos showing you how to make different things. So I chose this dark background, which is called Thundercloud, because A, the name really appealed to me, but also I wanted a dark background, not black, which I find too harsh. But I really like that dark colour the sky goes after a storm, and it always seems to me that when you get that really dark colour, that all the colours of all the flowers and the trees and the leaves really are bright by comparison. So that's why it appealed to me, and I wanted to make these. Initially I wanted to make them kind of rather industrial and sort of metallic looking, and initially I was thinking I wanted to give them like a hard edge, and so make them kind of faceted. I don't know if you can see that, like that. So that was the sort of idea I had from the internet, and the idea was I was going to make individual little moulds for each one, and I had in my mind I wanted to use expanding foam. This is just one example of a brand that makes it. Lots of people make it, so you don't have to use that one, but it's the sort of stuff that shows you on the label here. When you're doing sort of putting drain works in, if you've got a hole around the pipe, you just go and it fills in all the spaces, and then it dries really hard. So I thought if I could make some moulds, I would fill them with that, and then I'd be able to make my letters. But the more I thought about it, the more, with all these facets and things, I thought it was going to be really difficult to make moulds like that. So then I decided I would do the letters slightly differently, and I would do them with a flat surface but make them still three-dimensional. And then I abandoned the idea of making a mould, because I thought if I make a whole tray of expandable foam, then I can just cut my letters out. So first of all I had to choose a font. I'll explain about the foam in a minute. And I looked at a whole variety of fonts, and it's only when you start looking at fonts that you actually realise how the slightest difference just makes a huge difference in the impact in it. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I narrowed it down to these three. This one is called Georgia, this one is called, can't read backwards, Adobe Tie, and this one is, reading backwards through the paper, Bookmark Old Style. The difference, they look very similar at first glance, but the differences are, with this one, if you look at the little bits at the top here, some of them are at angles, like the M and the D and the top of the N, and the bottoms are all straight apart from the A, and this one again, they've got kind of slightly angular things. So I ruled that one out, and it was between that one and this one, and I just preferred this one. And also this one is called Georgia, and we've just come, I know it sounds ridiculous, we've just come back from holiday and we met two really lovely people there, two American people from the state of Georgia. Hello Stacia and Paul. So I just thought that's a sign. So I chose that one. So the next thing I did was I printed it up in much larger letters, so that I've gone around this one in a black felt tip pen, so that I could work out what size letters I wanted to print. So first of all I printed it up on a big piece of paper and then put it up, and as you can see that was the size that I eventually chose. And the next thing I did was, I don't know if you can just see here, I cut round the letters so that they were all the right size, and then returning to the expandable foam, I shook it up. This is the tray that I used. This is my tray here. I love this tray, and I didn't want it getting spoiled because this stuff is really, really sticky. So I lined it with cling film, lots of cling film, and then I sprayed liberally into it, and it came out like this. And this didn't work at all, because I just left it and let it dry. And A, it was too deep. You can see, I can just show you that piece. It's just too deep off the wall. It would have been standing out too much and I'd be forever knocking it. And the other thing was, if you look at the texture on the surface, it's just too bobbly, so that if I wanted to cut something, I mean I probably could cut round that on there, but it's just a very, very bobbly surface, and I wanted something not completely smooth, but certainly smoother than that. So what I did was I got rid of this, chuck that to one side, and then I had another go, and this time I didn't spray it so deeply, and what I then did was I got some spray olive oil, and I sprayed the surface with olive oil, I sprayed my hands with olive oil, and I just smoothed it like that, and actually it gave me a much smoother surface. It was a bit like, you know, when you make custard, you get that thick layer of custard on skin on top. It was like that. So I don't know if you can see here, that's the looking onto it, and then if you look sideways, it's got like a thin layer of thicker, more solid substance on the top. So that was much easier to cut, and it was to my mind, a much nicer surface. Now, as it happens, I couldn't get all of that out of one tray. So what I did, just going back to this, was I used the missing piece that was in that hole where my face is now to cut the H. But then what I did was I sliced the top off, and I got some little bits that were left from the tray with the nice skin on it, and I literally just cut it off like I was cutting a nail veneer, and then I glued it literally like a false nail onto the front. Actually the H is made up of lots of little pieces rather than one big piece, so that was how I did that. And what I used to cut it with these, you could have used a Stanley knife, but you know, the ordinary one, but I used these, which are much thinner, really lightweight in your hand, very sharp, do be careful, but they're quite deep, so I was able to cut straight down like that, all the way down. And when you're cutting out things like I's and S's, you actually have to be very careful that you cut straight down, because if you go at an angle, then the little flicky bits will just fall off. So that was that. Initially, I'll just go back to this, I did cut out in cardboard, and I was thinking that I might put layers of cardboard, but then I just thought, no, I really had my heart set on using expandable foam. So, but I just kept the H because I just rather liked it. I think it just is an appealing font, and I kept that as well. So that's all going into my box. But by the way, I keep a box of, well, I suppose other people would call it rubbish, but I call it useful potential. All sorts of things. So I've got in here tubes like this, and that expandable foam now, and boxes, and all sorts of things which at some stage may come in useful. They may not, but who knows. So that's that. Anything else I wanted to tell you? So these things may or may not come in useful in the future. Now, next project, you may have noticed there's some more tut on my desk. My niece is getting married in August, and rather rashly I've volunteered to sugar craft some flowers for her cake. This is the sample which I made up for her. And do you remember in the first video I said mistakes will be made? Okay, I made a really big one last night because I'm sitting in our conservatory at the moment, and we have roof windows. I left them open last night and it rained really heavily, and so water got sprayed all over these, so they've actually gone a little bit, they went this morning a little bit soggy, and so some of the points on these little flowers here have sort of flopped back a bit, but because it was still damp, it was still malleable, so I was able to just sort of perk some of them up. That's why that's been face down like that. My niece actually has a theme of blue and white, so this one's a bit more soggy than the other one, so this one also got a bit damp. So this is the sort of blue rose I'm going to be making for her, and that's going to be an ongoing thing because she wants to have flowers cascading all the way down a 5-tier cake, which is going to take a lot of work. So that's going to take quite a long time. What I'm going to do initially, using all my cardboard here, is build a dummy of the 5 tiers so that I can work out where to position the flowers, how to wire them in, and I'll just do a little update on all the videos so you can see how that project is going. And then another thing which I'm going to do is using this bit of leftover foam. Yay. So that's it, that's how I made those. The interesting thing about making anything like these is there are so many fonts, so many fonts. So if you want to do anything using cut out fonts, they're just so beautiful. You can really play around with them, and lettering is just, it is an art form on its own. If you want to see any photographs of me cutting out, if you look at the website, the Google Plus website, which is attached, I think, to this YouTube video, you'll see all of the stages that I went through, which is a bit more show rather than just tell, which we've had today, of how I made these. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video.